Hi, I'm Jessica Brake. I'm the seasonal at the St. Mary's Fish Hatchery right now. So with the St. Mary's Fish Hatchery, it opened in 1913, and so we're going on 112 years of operation. As of 1936, it was officially dedicated to the state as a hatchery. We're one of 6 right now in the state for public. We have 160 acres right now. Half of it is shared with our wildlife department. They help us, or they have waterfowl hunts, and then they control the migratory bird management. We are continuously renovating to upkeep with the demands of the state and production. So recently, in 2018, we just finished rebuilding our production building so we can do all of our fish rearing inside and handling. And then we also have 25 ponds, about 46 acres of water that we have on our hatchery. Funding for the state, that comes, a big portion of that comes from the Sport Fish Restoration Act, passed in 1950. So from excise tax on sport fishing equipment, motorboat fuel, gas fuel, and tackle, that is a big contribution into where we get our funding for the state. Operation, it is a year-round operation, even though you don't see us outside all year round. Right now we're in our fish season, so about mid to late February through April is when we do our egg take collections. With our hatchery, we typically go up to the Maumee River to collect walleye and sockeye eggs. And then it's a big partnership with all 6 hatcheries where we trade around fish and eggs in different life stages. Then come summertime, it's usually we're just feeding fish, taking care of that, working on stocking out fry that we've hatched, and raising up other species. And then obviously in our winter months, we're pretty slow. We do a lot of general maintenance then, a lot of repairs, and getting ourselves set up for success in the future with production season. At our hatchery, we have about 6 species we do. With our fathead minnows, that is a constant year-round reproduction cycle. We supply the Kincaid hatchery with a lot of minnows for their forage. They have a large muskie production there, and those are constantly eating and growing, so we help out, have a few of our ponds constantly reproducing minnows, and we'll send them down when they're needed. With our yellow perch, we're the only state hatchery to actually hatch and raise yellow perch. That's all done on site. We don't go and collect our eggs anywhere. We have a pond of brood stock. Each spring season, when the water hits a certain temperature, I would say around 60 degrees, that's when they tend to spawn. So beforehand, we go through and we drain out that pond, we sort out the fish, and then inside our holding house, we separate the males and the females together. And then we can control and manipulate the reproduction in that sense. So with the females, we will inject them with a hormone to get them to lay their eggs in our tanks when we want, and have it a really, it's a setup process year to year. It's generally the same. We can predict what we're gonna do. So the females get injected about 3 or 4 days later. They're laying their eggs in our tanks inside. And then overnight, the males come and fertilize the eggs. And then it's all done inside. We don't have to go around ponds, draining ponds, looking for eggs. They get set up into these perch racks. They lay long ribbons. They can get up to about 6 feet long. In nature, they wrap around vegetation, and that's how those eggs are clustered together. And the water currents, that's what's keeping the eggs healthy and fresh and not fungusy. But in the hatchery setting, we have them, the racks that go in are actually for typically trout eggs, and it has water constantly going through it, keeping them fresh and moving around. And about 13 days into it, we actually force hatch our perch. It's not the success rate, if we would let them naturally do it, isn't as high as a force hatch. So we throw them in a bucket, use a paint stir, get all of our fry out, and then right off the bat, a good portion of them do get stocked out freshly hatched fry. And then the rest of our yellow perch get stocked into our ponds. For about month and a half, they'll grow up to be fingerling size, so that's usually 1 inch to 2 inches. And then those go out and get stocked out into Ohio's waterways. With our walleye, those are collected from the Maumee River. With the walleye collection at the river, that's a night operation. So then we'll go up at night. The biologists through ODNR, they're out on the shock boats that you guys might see out and about. And then they'll bring the fish to us on the land. And then the hatchery teams go about collecting them. So we collect about the quarts that are agreed upon at the start of the year, and then we'll fertilize them, disinfect them, bring them back to our hatchery, disinfect them again, and then they'll go into our, we call them batteries. So that's what that center picture is. Those are what, if you come to our open house, those are where all the eggs are kept and hatched. Same thing, water's flowing through there, the eggs are constantly moving, nothing's getting super fungusy, and it gives us good success rates there. And those usually hatch about 12 to 13 days later. As those hatch, and some of our other species, we'll do fry counts, we'll check sizes. Some of them get stocked out right away, and then again, like the yellow perch, the rest get thrown out into our ponds, and then we raise those ones up. So same thing with our saugeye, that is a male sauger and then a female walleye. The biologists will collect about a month in advance. They'll collect male saugers, usually from the Ohio River or some other lakes, and those fish get isolated for about a month just to ensure no diseases are spreading across the state, the fish are healthy, and then they'll collect the male sperm that way. They will either use a pipette and get it out, or they found a lot higher success rates and a higher quantity if they sacrifice the fish and they're able to ground up the testes and then collect the sperm. So then the biologists will give that to the hatcheries, and then when we go up to the river, we'll fertilize it ourselves there instead of collecting sauger from that river and doing it that way. And it just increases population and production for that. And it's the same about hatch rate for walleye, about 12, 13 days. It does depend on water temps and what water we're using. In our production building, we have the option of switching from our well water to lake water. So just depending on temperatures and what we're needing at the time, we're able to manipulate it a little bit that way. Each jar, we try to keep about 3 quarts a jar when we're putting we're putting the eggs in. And then a quart is about 175,000 eggs. Success rates, those kind of differ and change per species and as time goes, but typically we're never below our requested stocking rates. And the hatchery is pretty good about having a good surplus. Our surplus fish will go out and stock usually as fry. Sometimes we'll hatch them up. So we've stocked a good majority of our surplus fish this year already. And then now we're waiting for our requested amounts to get to the size requirements that the biologist determined. With our catfish, we actually do have 2 catfish species at the hatchery. Once those previous fish species are hatched, stocked, all that's taken care of, we'll drain out those ponds and refill them up. And then we actually get our fry from other hatcheries, and then with the St. Mary's hatchery, we pond rear the catfish, and come October, we stock those ones out throughout the lake, or not the lake, but throughout the state. With our channel catfish, we get those from Senecaville about mid-July. Those are in our hatchery building for about 2 weeks as fry and troughs, and then we'll throw those out into the ponds. End of October, they'll be advanced fingerling size, so about 4 or 5 inches or so. Those get loaded up into our transport trucks and then stocked where requested. And then the other species, same thing, with the blue catfish, we get those as fry from the Hebron hatchery instead, which is outside of Columbus, mid-June, or May, mid-June, and then those are stocked out the first week of October. With our blue catfish, we actually have 1 pond dedicated right now to future breeders. We have about 40 blue cats in there, and they're all pit tagged for research. And then in case the Hebron hatchery has something go wrong, or there's always a backup pond for future breeders. I believe they also do go out and collect eggs from rivers, or we've in the past gotten them from Kentucky to start up the program. But we just have it just in case, or once their breeders go out of age. It's just constantly going and working on that right now. Stocking wise, so throughout the year, our biologists, they go out to our waterways and they'll do different sampling methods. They'll use shock boats, they'll use nets, and they'll determine the population densities and then sizes of species and just like the reproduction rates going on. And then through those surveys and with the hatchery teams, we are able to determine a request amount for what fish and where. So then as that's done, all stocking sites are also available on the ODNR website under the fish department section. Everything's made public there. It tells you what we stocked where, when. This year, Grand Lake will actually get around 300,000 yellow perch fingerlings. We have also already stocked it with a good amount of triploid saugeye. Indian Lake has gotten around almost 500,000 saugeye fry. Buckeye Lake got another 1.5 million yellow perch fry so far. Caesars Creek, Paulding, Defiance, and Delphus have also gotten a good amount of our saugeye surplus fry. So those are just some of the stockings we've done so far. And then stocking will continue through the end of October. When we stock our fry, those that we transport in our trucks and just we double bag them, fill them up with oxygen, and then we'll take them out to the waterways, and then we'll temper the bags. We'll get like the temperature of the lake versus what our bags are, get those all set up, and just release them out in there. And so we do release a large number of fry, but success rates and survival rates, we're hoping 50% success rates, and it can vary up to 70%. It really just depends. We don't quite know until the biologists come maybe in mid-fall, and they'll go and do a fry sampling for that. Once they do get bigger, anything fingerling size to advanced size, we do use those big transport trucks, and then use the tubing and piping to stock them out into the waterways. Just because we are in District 5, we actually don't only stock District 5. So you'll see the St. Mary's Hatchery all the way on the other side of the state. You'll see Senecaville, which is near the West Virginia side. They'll come all the way over here. I'm pretty sure they've stocked Indian Lake already. So it's just all over collaboration. We've had some guys helping out our Castalia Hatchery lately, stocking trout. So it's just everyone's always helping each other wherever needed. For the triploid saugeye program, this is actually just pertaining to Grand Lake St. Mary's, a 5-year program that was created to establish an excellent fishery in the Grand Lake St. Mary's Lake. Each spring we plan to stock up to 135,000 fingerling saugeye, about 1 inch to 2 inches. Those will all be triploid species. So to get the triploidy, our biologist Brian Blowett, this is his pressure shocker machine. So as we're collecting from the river right off the bat, those saugeye are getting fertilized and thrown into that pressure chamber. It's all timed out. It all has to be a certain time. In the pressure chamber, they're in there for about, I would say, 12 minutes. And when all those eggs are in there with that pressure, it takes the diploid cell, which means it's able to reproduce, and then it splits it into a triploid cell. And that triploid cell essentially makes the fish sterile. So then once we stock them, they cannot reproduce. There's always like a success rate's not a full 100%, but throughout the years, this has been tried in the past, and we've increased by about 15% for the triploidy cell within the batch of each eggs going through. We're stocking the sterile fish into the lake because we are Grand Lake goes into the Ohio River, but it also goes up into the Lake Erie as well. So since we are in the Lake Erie River Basin, saugeye are not a native species in Lake Erie. And with the walleye fishery being such an important fishery for anglers throughout the world, if the saugeye would get in there and then start reproducing, they would outcompete the walleye, and there's potential to diminish that fishery. And so the fish were stocked maybe about 10 years ago. The program was attempted, and there was surveys done in Lake Erie finding some saugeye out there, and they were able to somewhat track it down to our hatchery. So that means that we put them in the lake, and somehow they got from our lake all the way up to Lake Erie. So now with our success rates, the whole process should go a lot smoother. We're keeping about 25,000 or 2,500 of the fry in one of our ponds. And those we're going to raise to be about advanced fingerling size, so again, about 4 to 6 inches. Once those ones are at that size, our biologists are going to come in, we're going to pit tag them. So it's just a little transmitter that goes into the back of their fins. And with that, there's a sensor that you're able to read, and like it has like a number code that pops up. So pretty much they're like barcoded with those ones. And so then we'll stock those into the lake. The biologists will continue to do surveys, and also in Lake Erie. So if a fish does come up and it's a saugeye and it has our pit tag in it, we'll know they are actually escaping from our hatchery and somehow finding their way up into Erie. But with the triploid cell, they shouldn't be able to reproduce, so that would just be a straight for the anglers creating that fishery. So yeah, that starts, we have actually already stocked most of our triploid fry. We're getting some more fingerlings, and then we'll put those out, and then another, probably fall, they'll be able to be pit tagged and set out. That's a 5-year program. Each year we're putting in about the same amount, so by 2030 we should have a fishery already established out there for anglers to go out and catch some saugeye on the lake. Water sources. So we have 2 ways of getting water at our hatchery. One is obviously through Grand Lake St. Mary's. There's 2 intake valves off of East Bank. There's at the bulkhead near the south side of the lake, that is one of our intakes, which is this right-handed side picture. The water is able to come in through there. And then at the north and south side of the lake, they go through our strainers, which is this big contraption on the other side. As the water goes through there, it has a high pressure in it to break up debris and get the water like clear. And so we're able to fill up our ponds that way. We're able to change the water lines around and get our hatchery building filled with that. So we have access to lake water coming in through there. But then we also have 4 wells on our on the property. We have 2 north wells and 2 south wells. The 2 south wells are actually tapped into the Taze River, which is an underground river that flows through a good portion of the Midwest, which is what that little black line going through that picture is. So we lucked out. They drilled the wells in when they found water, and turns out it was right into that one of the veins of the Taze River. That water is constantly about, oh gosh, now I'm on the spot, like 55, maybe to 60, all year round. It's the same temperature, which is really helpful with us, especially when we're inside. The lake water is going up and down, or the lake water isn't at the nutrient levels we need. We're able to use that well water and help balance out our production, and for whatever reason we need it to be. When we're getting water from the intakes from the lake, it's usually about 4,000 to 5,000 gallons per minute. And then a combined total of all 4 wells, it'd be about like 1,500 gallons per minute. So it's pretty handy. We're really lucky in that sense at our hatchery. A lot of the other hatcheries are either in the process of being able to get the water from their lakes, or they're using wells. So we've definitely lucked out being able to have 2 really good sources of water for our hatchery, and that's not typically an issue that we are encountering. The hatchery also has public use and engagement. It has, we have an archery range open dawn to dusk. No, you don't need to have a permit like with some of the other ranges. And that's located around where all the buildings are at the hatchery, open to the public year round. We have self-guided tours. We have the poster sign outside of our office building. And then inside we also have a lot of information for the public, open to the public to go around. Check out the ponds. There's really good birding out there, which is pretty fun for some of us. So we'll definitely get distracted at work and we're checking for birds. However, the other side of the tree line, when it does get into that wildlife managed part of our hatchery, that's not open to the public. But so all of the ponds, and then on the right-hand side of that is where wildlife control or has controlled hunts. So there's dove hunts out there. There's a lottery for waterfowl hunting in the fall, done weekly, the weekly drawings. So that's definitely available for public use in that sense. And that is the St. Mary's Hatchery. If anyone has any questions, I will definitely do my best to answer them. Yes?
How do microcystis levels affect the fingerling?
Well, we kind of do like the water to be a little greener in the sense, not with the negative algal blooms throughout the lake, but when the lake water is greener, it helps our production a lot more. Our fry are able to get more. We don't have to quite fertilize as much. Our water, the green water, helps our fry grow a little faster. So, not good for the public and people want to get in the water, but we definitely appreciate the greener water coming from the lake. To combat that, we do lab usually about once a week. We'll do some lab testing when we do have fry in the ponds, and then we're able to go around and fertilize our ponds with phosphates and nitrates to induce algal blooms, and then that will help with the phytoplankton and the zooplankton, and then help our fish grow a lot faster for us as well. Yeah. Ooh, that's a good question. So it is dependent what we're stocking based off of what the biologists need, but then when they are determining that, they're looking at how many fish each species and what their age classes are. If we were all just to stock big fish into the lake, there wouldn't be a constant natural reproduction as well, which we're hoping for. So it's also not just for anglers, but also a conservation sense where we do want to keep having different age classes going into the lakes or waterways, and then to keep stocking it that way. Maybe our numbers go up or down one year dependent on what's getting caught when. And then just as the time they do get to be catchable size, the numbers naturally go down. Not all of them survive and make it. So it really is just dependent on when and where.
You noted there were 6 hatcheries in Ohio. How big is this one compared to the rest?
I would say our Hebron hatchery is probably a little bit bigger than ours. And then it goes all the way down, probably Kincaid being one of our smallest hatcheries. It varies. Not all ponds get used at all of them all the time, or different species and whatnot. But I would say St. Mary's is one of the larger hatcheries on within the state. All of hatcheries have typically 5 full-time employees and 1 seasonal. So I'm actually our seasonal employee right now, and hopefully with that our production's able to go smoothly. We do. So we do have depredation permits. We can't just say, oh, this, like, a goose is getting our fish and go out and take care of it. We do try to use other methods before filing for permits. So we try to scare the geese away. We try to do non-invasive tactics when it does come to that. But with the state hatchery, if we are to file for a depredation permit, we need to have concrete evidence that this species is affecting our numbers, when and where and how, and then through that we can file that through the state and then be approved for a depredation permit. So with our hatchery, we have a handful of waterfowl and birds that we are allowed to control as needed, and then we also are able to trap like muskrats and other animals around the hatchery as well. So there is that aspect of it, but it's controlled and monitored. Some years we have one, some years we don't. This year we've noticed we have a depredation permit for a common merganser. We have not seen common mergansers, but we've seen a lot of red-breasted mergansers, and those are definitely affecting our population, but we don't have a depredation permit for that. So we do have like air guns that like sound off and scare the birds out, or we just drive around the ponds a whole bunch honking and yelling. So if you see us doing out that, we're controlling the population. But there's different avenues just depending on what and where.
So you don't raise any crappie, huh?
Yeah, so crappie are a pretty naturally reproducing species. They, especially if you would put them in one of your, like a farm pond, those are going to overtake. They have no problem reproducing. Even though sometimes, like right now, I know they're bedding on rocks, and I haven't had the best of luck. But there is a really good population in our lake. The biologists have deemed it a great fishery for crappie, so they're just getting a lot better about not being able to be caught, in my opinion. But yeah, so not typically. We do have a few hatcheries that do bluegill, but crappie is I would consider more of an invasive or aggressive reproducer. So the states don't typically stock that one.
What's your background? How long have you been there?
So I just graduated from Hawking College in December with my fish management and aquaculture science associate's degree. So at Hawking College they do have a school hatchery. I would work there and volunteer there for the last 2 years, and I volunteered up at I'm from Coldwater originally. So then I would volunteer at the St. Mary's Fish Hatchery when I was like, oh wait, I live near a hatchery, that's perfect. And then I was able to get in on as the seasonal this January. So about 4 months now that I've been up here.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
When would you guys have another open house like that?
Yearly in March, I want to say near the end of March, during when we try to have all of our fry in there and fish. So every year, usually on a Saturday morning, 10 to 4, and it's end of March about. And then all 6 hatcheries do have open houses. They try to do their best about making that public when and where. They don't typically overlap days, but it is pretty cool to get out and see how Castalia does trout or Kincaid does muskie in that sense.
Is there a website or something to get the link to all the other hatcheries?
Yeah, so off of the ODNR website, there's one section's like the fish hatcheries or fisheries, and it will list all 6 hatcheries, and then you can click off of their pages and Facebook post about events happening as well throughout the state.
So with a sawguy being a cross between a sauger and a walleye, are they able to reproduce in the wild?
They are. So the normal sawguy, if they have been found to reproduce in nature. The percentage of it is not that common, but it is still a capability. So that's why we're worried about putting in fertile fish into Grand Lake. So while it's not common, it's still possible. We definitely don't want to be the cause of ruining the walleye fishery. Well, if anyone else has questions, feel free to reach out, but thank you.